Fortunately, and this is again a situation that we're dealing with in America en masse, where churches just aren't going deep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a leadership thing.
Yeah, I was going to ask,
let's talk about that.
Why do you think that is?
Yeah, that's something we're talking about. Because I would say in the past, we've been guilty of that. Or I guess to be more specifically, I would say in the past, I've been guilty of that and have struck a more inspirational chord as a preacher. But certainly, I guess in the last, I would say maybe 2 to 3 years, probably would be an accurate time frame. Have transitioned from that, and I just have a deep conviction that people are way overly inspired and they need depth. And I think COVID proved that, right? And it was such a reckoning for a lot of churches, and it was a reckoning for a lot of churches because it was a reckoning for a lot of Christians.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In that they had nothing to stand on. And that's probably an overstatement. I don't want to be severe, but we've certainly come to a place where we kind of just, our aim is not to inspire, and we're not trying to be impressive preachers. We want people to learn the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Why do you think that is the case?
Something like that. I do think it's very complicated. I think we've complicated it. I think that we've created a number of different things that have become obstacles. Anywhere from a desire to grow the church by numbers rather than by character. A desire to appease people, the fear of man, that is a snare to leadership. I think the fear of man is probably one of the chief snares to leaders not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Say that in a non-Christian way for anybody who might be listening to this and they are not familiar with the terminology of the fear of man.
Yeah. So I would say when leaders begin to look at when leaders begin to look at people as their source of strength, when leaders begin to look at people in a way that idolizes them, that exalts them into a position of unnatural obedience and just acquiescence, just saying, hey, whatever, basically turning church into a democracy, I suppose, where church is actually not a democracy. Church is not people up, it's thrown down. And the idea here is that Jesus is the King of kings and the Lord of lords. And so, there's really not a non-Christian way to put that, only because you either fear man or you fear God. And really, that's really what it boils down to. It's not like there's a neutral, non-theistic position to take.
Right.
It's because everything boils down to authority. And so if you have a proper alignment in terms of how you look at authority, you're not going to look at the people's authority as higher and greater and more respectable and honorable than the Lord's. You're gonna say, you know what? As a leader, I care about what God thinks before I care about what men think. Mm-hmm. And so as a leader, you're going to look at that and say, I want to do everything that I can to make sure that I'm pleasing God. Not to say that pleasing man is somehow there's like an antipathy between pleasing God and pleasing man. I don't think that it should be. There should be, because I think God is good, and therefore that when we please God, it is pleasant to man. Because God is good,
especially for people whose aim is to be pleasing to God, and that is the church is a collective group of people who are aiming to be pleasing to God. Therefore, if the leader's aim is to be pleasing to God, then the people will be pleased by extension.
Exactly.